Once in one of the videos, I asked the question, why do you think hair transplant doctors don't do the hair transplant themselves? Since then, several times someone wrote in the comments, sometimes guys write to me in private messages who have my contact under my personal control. They say, Oleg, so why are hair transplant doctors often bald themselves and it seems like the shoemaker has no shoes? Let's look at this, and not only this today. Perhaps we will also add why some doctors have recently started doing hair transplants themselves. Let's start. In fact, I didn't prepare much for this video. I literally jotted down a few thoughts that I always, let's say, kept in my head about, this point, why doctors don't do hair transplants. And it's not for nothing that for 5 years now I've been traveling to different clinics all over the world, researching doctors, equipment, technologies, and so on. And I often notice that doctors themselves often suffer from alopecia. They have bald spots. And the first question arises, why don't they do hair transplants themselves? Your opinions and comments, first of all, I'll be very interested to read them if you have any thoughts on this matter, especially before I start listing my, let's say criteria. I'll be glad if you write them first, or rather criteria before you watch this video right now in the comments, and then compare. Do our thoughts coincide or not, and is there a match? And the first point, accordingly, is the one that I literally wrote out before the video and will tell my vision, as if based on my experience. And I want to turn it a little from the other side because I noticed that some doctors started doing hair transplants, although they, practically didn't need it. Sometimes I look and think, why, I wonder, did he do a hair transplant if he didn't need it at all? And then, of course, I see that this marketing machine of the clinic starts to chew over all this, to spin it. Perhaps so that you would think that, hey, look, now I am also among you. I am also kind of bald, although they may not be bald at all, or just with a transplant to correct the frontal line, or literally some super small bald spots often associated with age. And all this is done, of course, in order to say, I am also bald, so come to me, we will do everything for you like mine. But the nuance is that he really has practically no bald spots. And of course, you see and think, since he did it himself, it means he won't do anything bad to you either, and you can trust him. But that's not always the case. And then the marketing machine starts spinning. Some people even do broadcasts online. Someone starts making a bunch of posts that the doctor did a hair transplant himself. And of course, you are bribed by this. Therefore, there is such a tool of influence which can be said, hey, I am bald too and trust me, although they may not be bald at all. But why don't doctors do hair transplants? Let me share with you now, as they say, from the second point. Graft extraction often leaves marks, and doctors know this. And if they really have a high stage of alopecia, they understand that these scars will remain with them forever. There are different types of graft extraction. There is machine, there is manual. Manual, it is considered that this is more delicate. And for your graft, as it were, the very same punch or manual punch is selected, thanks to which the extraction is done. But modern machines allow, in fact, to also extract these grafts quite invisibly and not leave too large dots. But dots are still there after any graft extraction. But some clinics also do not realize that everything depends not only on the machine that takes the grafts, but also on your specific physiology. Because some skin is more susceptible to the formation of keloid scars, some skin less. And it also depends even on age, because the younger you are, the more likely you are to have scars. Some, let's say, swindlers and crooks can tell you that you should not go to Turkey, do not have a hair transplant there. Some even come up with new technologies that do not even exist. Obviously, the smaller the diameter of the graft collection, the smaller the white dot, but also the greater the chance of traumatizing your own graft during extraction. And when extracting, for example, 100% of grafts, there is a chance that up to 40% can be damaged. And as a client, you will never know until robots are involved in the specific measurement of the number of grafts transplanted and the hair that has actually grown, and you will not have specific figures. You will never know how you were deceived and how many grafts were actually extracted from you and how many grafts actually grew. And this is one of the reasons why many clinics and doctors do not use them. They have small punches, 0.4 and 0.5 millimeters. But the fact is that you have multigrafts with a denser base at the back of your head, and it is almost impossible not to damage these grafts using a small diameter extractor. This means that your graft is unlikely to take root. Have you heard stories about how they extracted a lot, but in fact there was little hair? Therefore, when they tell you that they have the thinnest punch, as they say, run away, because it is a risk for you. It is simply unprofessional. If it were all about the diameter of the punch, then the very doctors who create these punches would have been working only with small punches for a long time. It's all a marketing ploy. The result is traces of graft removal. And of course, doctors with severe alopecia don't want to have these traces. Furthermore, doctors understand that any hair transplant is permanent, and any mistake will be visible. Unfortunately, there is no Ctrl Z button to undo everything and return things to the way they were. So this important point also leads to the next point, because in fact if doctors perform hair transplants on themselves, other doctors and clients will see the quality of that work and will be able to evaluate the doctor. Many probably do not want this, and there are doctors who think that with a little more knowledge, when I am at the peak of my knowledge, I will have a hair transplant. But usually, when doctors are at their peak, they don't need any hair transplants. They are already fine as they are. A very important point is that hair transplants often make no sense without treatment. Especially if you are young, if you are 20 to 30 years old and it is only getting worse, you use your donor material and continue to lose hair, signing up for more and more hair transplants. This is profitable for clinics. Fast food clinics that pay bloggers and advertise invest huge amounts of money and marketing to influence your pain and your emotional state so that you will undergo that very hair transplant. And yes, you may be satisfied for the first couple of years regardless of how well or poorly the procedure was performed. First, you won't be able to compare it with other clinics that could have done a much better job. Second, you had nothing and suddenly you have something. That's already a joy. And which clinics should you compare it with? With those clinics that have experienced doctors who will perform your hair transplant in 5 to 7 years. More precisely, 5 years is only the starting point when you can begin to analyze doctors. If you watch my videos, you've probably noticed that I don't even bother analyzing doctors with less than 5 years of experience because there's nothing to analyze yet. Those who trust me know that I have my own experienced doctors. I don't work with clinics. My doctors are specific people whom I know personally and who have already done a lot of work under my supervision. I know the specifics of each particular surgeon, and I personally prepare each of my clients for hair transplantation. I calculate the area mathematically and model the frontal line. I fully prepare the patient for each case. And most importantly, I develop a specific treatment and rehabilitation plan for each month. I've already mentioned that I have a huge database on treatment and various remedies for different types of hair loss. There are about 35 remedies. Hair is treated not only with finasteride and minoxidil, and there are about 11 different causes of hair loss. And for each case, I select different treatment protocols. I'm not selling you anything. I'm trying to help and constantly updating my data. I already have more than 35 to 40 pages of specific actions that need to be taken for each specific method. Indeed, over the past year, I have been studying treatment in great depth because for 4 years I studied clinics and doctors. Now, not much is happening, but in terms of treatment, I have found a huge area for study and find it very interesting. I see that there are really many different cases. They are all different, and for each specific case, you need to create your own treatment protocols. This is what I am doing now. So, getting back to the point, hair treatment, rehabilitation, and support are very important factors that must go hand in hand with hair transplantation. If, for example, you have been undergoing hair transplants for 20 to 30 years, you are using up your material and you are not restoring the hair you have left by the age of 30 or 32, you may lose even more hair than you have transplanted, and you are signed up for permanent transplants again. Yes, for someone with severe alopecia, it is necessary to plan several procedures at once if there is enough donor material. This is what I do with my clients, those who trust me. We create a plan. I am not looking for additional work. I realize that what I started with is what I will continue to do. I'm not scaling up. I need a personal approach to each person. I cannot transfer all my knowledge and personal experience to someone else. I was bald for almost 25 years. I had 2 hair transplants. I had trichopigmentation. I tried a hair system. In other words, I tried everything possible in order to know exactly what works and what doesn't. And it's all in my head. I can't entrust it to anyone else. That's why my approach is to treat each person individually based on their specific situation. In other words, I analyze everything from start to finish. Yes, it takes a lot of time, but my goal is to achieve results that even expensive clinics sometimes can't achieve and at a reasonable price. So, coming back to the point, because a single transplant is not enough to achieve a permanent result, and often in clinics they say that you need to use finasteride for a year. You can't use finasteride like that because your body only gets used to it after a year. And then if you stop taking it because the clinic told you to take it for a year, it has an even more negative effect on your body. That's when those side effects appear, because you shouldn't put your body through such swings, which completely throw it off balance. First, your body gets used to finasteride, then you stop taking it, and you start experiencing these fluctuations again. And of course, this leads to hair loss again. So think about it. Clinics are interested in profits and their portfolio, even if they prescribe finasteride for temporary use, so that in a year's time you will be happy to bring in new clients. What happens to you after that is in fact irrelevant to the clinics. And if you think that a clinic is a place where you will be treated and have a transplant done, you are wrong. Okay, you might say, then I can find a hair transplant and a trichologist. Try it. After 5 years of in-depth research, I have found only 2 trichologists who are good professionals, who are interested, who study and practice at the same time. But what about the rest of the trichologists? It's the same old story. Everyone who comes to me for a consultation says that it would have been better if they hadn't gone to a trichologist. Most often they recommend minoxidil, and that's basically it. Or what the trichologist himself needs to sell: mesotherapy and lotions with shampoos. With 6th or 7th degree alopecia, as you understand, it's just a way for the trichologist and interested parties to make money. That is, it's kind of, dirty work, unpleasant work. I don't know why trichologists do it. Well, it's understandable that everyone wants to earn money, but I didn't take the Hippocratic Oath, did I? In general, it's up to each individual. What I want to say is that a transplant without treatment makes no sense, at least without analyzing what will happen in the next few years or even decades. Especially if you are 20 to 30 years old, you need to at least analyze what will happen to you by the time you are 40 to 50. Well, at least by the time you are 40. Without a full diagnosis, you don't understand what's wrong with you, what you need to do, how to treat it, how many transplants you will need in the future, and whether you will have enough donor material for everything. Some people go for hair transplants for 20 years, they get this part of the front planted, then their donor area runs out, or they plant here, and you end up with these strange hair transplants. And when you shave your head, it's just horrible. Unfortunately, it is too late to change anything. Next, why doctors don't get hair transplants. The more you know, the more doubts you have. This happens to me too. If you remember my first videos, I recorded 3 videos a week. I was confident about almost everything. This is what is called beginner's syndrome. And the more you learn, the more doubts you have, because you already have a lot of information that you compare, that you connect, that you begin to doubt. And doubt is what is called the path of a true professional. And, of course, when you become a professional, you have a different perspective. And it really takes years to get there. Of course, there are various upstarts and fraudsters who will try to sell you something. Everyone's IQ is different too, selling their super remedies while being bald themselves or calling for conveyor belt hair transplants in order to line their pockets. But I still think that at some point, there has to be at least a minimal level of doubt. And why am I saying all this? Of course, doctors, the more experienced they become, the more doubts they have about whether hair transplants are necessary at all. Maybe it's just too late for someone, or there isn't enough material, and so on. Then they start to combine all these factors themselves and even think about treatment, but it's too late to be treated. And doctors themselves are aware of the disadvantages of hair transplantation. These include white spots, limited donor supply, and frequent unnaturalness. The hair on the back of the head is almost always much thicker, and when we transplant it to the front, it is very noticeable. And this is very noticeable because the hair at the front is more delicate. In general, there are many such nuances, and it is very difficult to observe them all. Therefore, doctors themselves may prefer not to perform hair transplants at all, because nothing can be more natural than baldness or what nature has given us, what we already have. And this can also be a very important factor. There are indeed some young doctors who have hair transplants. Some of them are not bad, but they are noticeable hair transplants. When it comes to world-class doctors, they will be evaluated by both clients and colleagues. And it is important that people laugh at them behind their backs. It really has to be a cool hair transplant, indistinguishable from what it would look like if there had been no hair transplant at all. That's what I strive to do for my clients as well. I will actually record a few videos for you later, perhaps, and show you some of the work I have supervised. This year I didn't record much because I was busy with work and results. I was immersed in work and accompanying guys around the world. My personal accompaniment to get results that are indistinguishable from a hair transplant. And yes, I don't really brag about it because I have enough work as it is. But these are the results that can be achieved without deception. In other words, everything has its price. If you have a large area of alopecia but a small donor area, then you have to pay with density. You can get a transplanted forelock like they do in various fast food clinics. And at first you look at yourself in the mirror and think you're so handsome. You turn around and there's nothing behind you. Here you have a transplanted forelock and here you have nothing. And if before such people only walked around Turkey, around Istanbul, now they walk around all over the world. In general, it's up to each person. The main thing is that whatever you decide, you always analyze and think about the fact that your appearance is a promising investment. And any mistake you make, you will be the one to feel and experience this ugliness. That is why the information you need to know, the complete and important information, is really what you should have. And another thing, have you noticed that there is no mention here of whether doctors think it is expensive or inexpensive? Of course, you will say, well, they work in clinics, they can do it themselves, or their colleagues can do it for them. The thing is, hair transplantation is an aesthetic procedure, and doctors, as a rule, are not what you would call stupid people. And they always, of course, think and know that this is a promising investment in themselves. And it's not about money at all, it's about skills. There are different kinds of doctors. There are doctors who don't do the best work but charge a lot. And there are good doctors who aren't expensive. But clinics are always about marketing, not doctors. Get a few bloggers involved, and they'll bring in all their followers, and then the clinic has a ton of work. But what about this work? Yes, they show you the best. But you always have to think about what will happen to you if you don't know your doctor. So those are my thoughts on why doctors don't do hair transplants on themselves. Share yours. If you know of any doctors who really have a 6th degree, bald spots with a limited donor area, and supernatural results, please share. Also write in the comments, I will check everything. But I, for example, don't know many such doctors. By the way, I wanted to share something with you. So maybe some of those doctors also decided to fill in the gaps and are now starting to get transplants themselves to become more competent doctors. Remember, a doctor who performs hair transplants is a technical performer, and he doesn't necessarily have to be in the shoes of a bald person. But remember, 4 or 5 years ago, I also recorded a video and asked whether they understood our problems, the problems of bald people. After all, people often say, well, you're bald, but you're fine as you are, or something like that. And someone there said that a gynecologist needs to be a man. That is, a man cannot be a gynecologist. Maybe, but in order to fully understand the problem, sometimes you probably need to experience it yourself and understand the full extent of this problem, the solutions, and even the post-operative passage of all these moments that we go through. So share what you think about why hair transplant doctors don't often do hair transplants on themselves and are often bald. Or even I know some doctors who have a terrible donor area, but there are few of them. Oh, well, many doctors simply don't have hair transplants, they're just bald. Although I could even recommend certain doctors to some of them who could handle their cases. Share your thoughts on this in the comments. Well, the main thing is that everything looks beautiful and aesthetic. We are starting a new season.